Argentina, the land where football dreams come true and economic nightmares never end. Last year, inflation in Argentina hit a whopping 211%. That's right, over 200%. Imagine your local cafe hiking up the price of a latte by 10% every month. At this rate, Argentine pesos are about as valuable as toilet paper or worse. Even toilet paper went up in value during the pandemic, but the peso just keeps crashing down. The newly elected President Milei has implemented aggressive fiscal and monetary reforms aimed at stabilizing the economy. His omnibus reform bill is all about privatizing public companies and deregulating the economy. The lower house of Congress gave it a thumbs up, but it's faced with mass protests because, apparently, not everyone is a fan of his magic tricks. But the economic crisis isn't new in Argentina. It is more like an old family recipe passed down through generations. This country has defaulted on its debt 9 times and has gone to the IMF for bailout packages 22 times. That's more trips to the financial emergency room than most people make to Starbucks in a week. Nobel laureate Simon Kuznets once joked, "There are 4 kinds of countries: developed countries, developing countries, Japan, and Argentina." Japan made it big despite its challenges, while Argentina seems to trip over every opportunity for success. Believe it or not, Argentina was once one of the wealthiest countries in the world. In the early 20th century, it was the 5th largest economy on the planet, thanks to its agricultural sector and foreign cash flooding in. The country was a top-tier exporter of beef, wheat, and corn, basking in the glory of its fertile pampas and fancy pants farming techniques. Technological marvels like steamships, railroads, and refrigeration made shipping meat and grains to Europe as easy as ordering pizza. Millions of Europeans, especially Italians and Spaniards, flocked over it, making Argentina a melting pot of culture and labor power. By 1913, its GDP per capita was right up there with France and Germany. But then came the Great Depression in the 1930s, and Argentina's economy fell harder than a toddler learning to walk. Global trade nosedived, and demand for its agricultural products vanished. Protectionist policies popped up everywhere, strangling Argentina's export game. The GDP took a nosedive, and unemployment rates shot up like a botched rocket launch. Argentina's grand plan: turn inward and promote local industries, because who needs foreign goods when you can have your own, right? High tariffs and juicy subsidies to local manufacturers followed. It was like putting training wheels on a bike and never taking them off. Sure, it reduced unemployment and boosted industrial growth at first, but soon enough, the industries were churning out goods that were as appealing as soggy cereal. The welfare state grew, but without enough taxes to feed the beast. Argentina was left in an economic sanction of its own making, like Russia, but with better stakes. This economic roller coaster, combined with military coup shenanigans from the 1930s, really threw the country for a loop. From 1930 to the democratization in 1983, Argentina pulled off 6 military coups. One of the key players in this coup frenzy was Juan Perón, the military officer who moonwalked his way to the presidency in 1946. His approach, often referred to as Peronism, was characterized by several populist policies that many blame for Argentina's fiscal failure. However, the economic policies implemented by Juan Perón were not particularly unusual for the time. They followed the trends of the era, incorporating Keynesian economics in the US and planned economies in the Soviet Union, which were successful at the time. Loads of newly independent third world countries were following their footsteps, and Argentina was no exception. Under his reign, the economy was growing, although admittedly, with less swag compared to the OECD average. It was the spectacular flops of the subsequent military regimes that truly torpedoed the economy. Until Perón's exit, Argentina had welfare policies that would make even Santa Claus jealous, with poverty rates as low as 5.8% in 1974. Then came Jorge Vidal, whose economic strategy was as logical as using a fork to eat soup. His regime turned national debt into an extreme sport, embraced aggressive neoliberal policies, and had the genius idea of selling domestic companies at garage sale prices. Vidal didn't stop at economic disaster. He decided to blow an ungodly amount of money on the 1978 World Cup. Sure, Argentina won, but the national euphoria fizzled out faster than you can say economic collapse, leaving everyone grumbling about the trade-off between a shiny trophy and a shattered economy. By 1980, poverty had rocketed to 37.4%. Then enters Leopoldo Galtieri, who thought the best way to distract from a collapsing economy was to pick a fight with Britain over the Falkland Islands. Spoiler alert, it didn't end well. Argentina's decisive defeat in the Falklands War drained their finances, led to war reparations, and scared off foreign investors faster than a haunted house. By 1982, Argentina's economy was swirling down the toilet, with debt defaults and inflation making everyday life feel like a bad reality TV show. Between 1976 and 1982, over 400,000 companies went bankrupt, and 37 financial institutions like banks went under. If there was an award for economic mismanagement, Argentina would have taken home the gold. Losing legitimacy, the military finally threw in the towel and handed over the reins to a democratic government. This marked the start of the merry-go-round in Argentine politics, where democratic regimes played a game of hot potato between Peronist and neoliberal reforms. Most of them fumbled the potato, and the result was a spectacular mess of resignations and protests. Eventually, in 2001, Argentina defaulted on $93 billion of debt, snatching the title for the largest sovereign default ever. Banks became Fort Knox, locking up everyone's money and freezing accounts like they were auditioning for a dystopian movie. From 2003 to 2015, Argentina clawed its way back to recovery, but it was like trying to fill a bucket with a giant hole. Subsequent governments tried to tame the economic beast, but it was like fighting a hydra. Cut one head and two more grow back. Hyperinflation kept skyrocketing, debt piled up, and poverty rates refused to budge. And thanks to its previous default shenanigans, Argentina was like the kid band from the international credit playground. Nobody wanted to invest or lend money to Argentina anymore. With inflation often hitting more than 20% annually, Argentinians spent their salaries as soon as they received them to buy goods or convert their money to dollars. Beef prices soared, and many turned to beef offal and chicken, with some even scavenging for food in grocery store dumpsters, a scene straight out of a dystopian novel. The situation only got worse during the pandemic. In 2024, Milei is even talking of ditching the peso for the dollar to regain fiscal credibility, which no large economy has ever tried before. But experts say the idea requires a mountain of cash and a solid banking system, neither of which Argentina has. Argentina's economy is like a tangled ball of yarn made of bad decisions. Like the Harvard professor Rafael Di Tella said, if a guy has been hit by 700,000 bullets, it's hard to work out which one of them killed him. However, there seems to be a couple of fundamental themes throughout this video. First, Argentina has the financial reputation of a shady pawn shop. Whenever a default crisis hit, instead of following the playbook and restructuring, Argentina opted for the screw you, we won't pay approach, further tanking its credit score and scaring off investors and trade partners. With foreign exchange reserves in the negatives and a peso worth less than monopoly money, inflation skyrocketed. Second, unlike the United States, which evolved from agriculture to manufacturing like a proper modern economy, Argentina stubbornly clung to its agricultural roots. Even now, the country's exports are primarily agricultural, with soybean, corn, and soybean oil leading the pack. This dependence on agriculture is like asking for the resource curse, which I've covered in another video. Despite these economic woes, Argentina is still a member of the G20 and the second largest economy in South America, right behind Brazil. The future might look as bleak as a Monday morning, but with its abundant resources, Argentina still has the potential to rise from the ashes and become one of the world's largest economies. Here's hoping it can finally get its act together. That's all I have for today. If you made it this far, please hit the like and subscribe button. I'll see you in the next one.